To understand the mind of anyone, it is necessary to master three crucial techniques. These techniques are essential for, by mastering them, it becomes possible to discern and easily comprehend what anyone is thinking. I will narrate a Buddhist story that will teach how to read the minds of others. A long time ago, in a small village, lived two brothers. The elder brother was blind, so he spent most of his time at home, while the younger brother worked as a farmer. However, their crops were constantly being destroyed by many animals in the fields. The younger brother was troubled by this problem but eventually found a solution. He thought, why not seek the help of my blind brother to scare away the animals from the fields? He can stay in the field and shout if he hears any animal sounds, and thus our crops will be saved. After thinking about it, the younger brother built a small hut in the field and placed the blind brother inside it. He explained, "Brother, if you hear any animal sounds, just shout and the animals will flee. This will save our crops." The blind brother agreed with the idea of the younger brother and began staying in the field. Whenever he heard the sound of animals, he would shout, scaring them away. They continued this practice for many days. On one occasion, there was a field through which a deer passed, broke the fence, and escaped. Shortly afterward, a king who was chasing the deer also arrived in the field. The king noticed the blind brother and asked him, "Did you see a deer here?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind. How can I see a deer? However, I can say that the animal that left my field is not worth pursuing. You are wasting your time." The king was astonished by the blind brother's words and questioned how he knew that. The king asked the blind brother if he was lying, as he claimed to be blind but spoke about the value of the deer. In response, the blind brother said, "Your Majesty, the animal you believe to be a deer is actually a pregnant doe. I have never heard of a king hunting a pregnant doe, so I am telling you it is not worth your pursuit." The king was amazed by the blind brother's words. He couldn't comprehend how the blind person could identify the doe as pregnant. He thought, how can a blind person know this? How can he be sure if the deer I am chasing is pregnant or not? How can he confidently provide information about this even though he is blind? The king felt the need to verify this and instructed his commander. "Commander, I want that animal alive. I need to confirm if it is indeed a pregnant doe. The blind man seems very sure about it, and I need to investigate. Please go and find out if she is pregnant." The king's orders were received by the commander, who proceeded. When he returned, he informed the king that the blind brother was correct and the doe was pregnant. The king was full of admiration and couldn't understand how the blind person knew about the doe's pregnancy. The king had many questions in his mind and decided to ask the blind man to get to the bottom of this. "Look, perhaps I don't know if you are truly blind or not, but I came to ask one thing. Will you give me the correct answer to my question?" In response, the blind brother said, "Your Majesty, you can ask me anything and I will answer honestly." The king said, "You are a wise person and seem to have a keen understanding of many things. Today, I called you to find out if my wife is faithful to me or not." The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, what kind of question is that? Your marriage has lasted for many years, and now you want to know such things. Why do these questions arise in your mind?" However, the king insisted, saying, "You must answer this question. If you do not provide me with an answer, you will be punished with the death penalty." Hearing the king's threat, the blind brother said, "Your Majesty, if you want the answer to that question, you will have to do me a favor." The king asked, "Tell me, what do I need to do?" The blind brother replied, "For this, you will have to leave your wife alone with me in a room." The king was initially angered to hear this, but eventually agreed to the request and ordered the commander to leave the blind brother and the queen alone in a room. At that moment, the blind brother expressed a desire to touch the queen. Upon hearing this, the queen became furious and began hitting the blind brother with all her strength. Later, the blind man somehow managed to escape and went to the king. Then, the blind brother said to the king, "Your Majesty, your wife is unfaithful." The king, enraged, drew his sword and went to the queen. Next, the king asked a question, warning her that any falsehood would lead to her execution. He asked whether she was faithful or not, to which the queen replied, "Your Majesty, you may as well kill me, but I am not faithful." The king was overjoyed because everything the blind brother had said was true. Upon hearing this, the king immediately went to the blind brother and asked, "How did you know this? How did you find out if my wife was faithful or not?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, while in the field, I could hear the footsteps of two beings. One was you, and the other was your wife's lover. They met every night. That's how I discovered the betrayal." The king, though shocked, recognized the wisdom of the blind brother. However, he was intrigued by how the blind brother knew all these details since he claimed to be blind. The blind brother, sensing the king's doubt, revealed the truth. He said, "Your Majesty, I am not truly blind. My blindness is a ruse so that I can move freely without attracting attention. However, this ruse allowed me to observe and understand many things that others do not perceive. Darkness gave me a clearer vision of hidden truths." The king was impressed by the intelligence of the blind brother and thanked him for revealing the truth about his wife. At that moment, the blind brother told the king, "Your Majesty, there is one last thing you must know. Your mother told me a story that you never knew. When she was pregnant with you, a wretched merchant approached her and made a deal to take you with him. Your father, upon discovering this, threatened the merchant, who finally returned your mother. So, my king, you are indeed your father's son, but you also live in the shadow of a petty merchant." The king, surprised by this revelation, could hardly believe what he was hearing. The words of the blind brother once again proved to be true, uncovering a secret that the king was unaware of. This story highlights the three essential techniques to understand the mind of anyone. 1. Observation. Just as the blind brother observed the sounds of animals to protect the crops, keenly observing behavior, body language, and expressions can reveal much about people's thoughts and feelings. 2. Testing. The blind brother tested the queen's fidelity by proposing a specific situation. Similarly, creating scenarios or asking questions that demand genuine answers can reveal people's true intentions. 3. Revelation. Finally, the blind brother revealed hidden truths about the king's lineage. Similarly, seeking information and uncovering hidden aspects can provide insights into a person's past or motivations. By incorporating these techniques into daily interactions, it is possible to develop a deeper understanding of people and effectively interpret their thoughts and emotions.